the back shows up and he just goes, yank. And then he's just sitting there all, 6'6" wingspan of him waiting for the back. And back's like, oh my God, like, whoops. I thought there was
you could make a
there.
strong case that if you put a freshman against him, that constitutes child abuse. Like that's how dominant it was. So I think he's great. Welcome back to the Bootleg Football Podcast. I'm Brett Coleman. That's EJ Snyder. Part 2 of our annual 10 Gem Specials is today. Talking defense. Offense was last week. Defense is today. Had a lot of defensive linemen, linebackers, DBs, in some cases, part-time fullbacks and tight ends to talk about today. Very, very, very fun defensive class. Some of the names we're going to bring up today are going to be day 1 guys. Most of them are probably going to be day 2 and day 3 guys. Pretty good mix here. But before we get into that, EJ, my friend, how are you?
Second half of the best series of the year, one of my all-time favorites that we've created. And not only because we get to give our opinions about players that we really just plain old like watching. All the comments from offense have been amazing. People putting out their own list, people disagreeing, people agreeing with super high tones. It's all really fun. It generates, I think, some of the best. I won't say the best. I will say some of my favorite conversations around the draft every year are generated by our Gem Specials. So this is part 2, as you said, and we've got lots of good players to go over.
Again, you guys know the format by now. I have 5, EJ has 5, and then we also each have 5 honorable mentions. So 20 total names to put on your brain today. Before we get into it, I do want to thank Underdog Fantasy for making this series and every other series that we do possible throughout the year. I know football season is done, but you can already draft for fantasy football for next season, including this year's rookie crop. So if you listened to last week's 10 Gem Specials on offense, and then you went and you watched some of the receivers and some of the running backs and some of the tight ends, and you realize like, hey, I like that guy a lot too. You can draft them right now on Underdog Fantasy before their value gets inflated by going to like a Kyle Shanahan offense or whatever running back is going to get taken in the 3rd round by them this year. So if you want to draft for fantasy football because you got the itch, we've been without football for like a month now, and it sucks. And so you want to get back into it. You want to feel like you're getting ready for the season 6 months early. You can do that over on Underdog Fantasy. Either use the QR code on the screen or at the link in the description below. Enter promo code BOOTLEG. You get up to $1,000 in deposit bonuses. You can use that either for fantasy football, or you can do NBA pick'ems or baseball pick'ems or whatever you want to do with it. Use it however you feel. But again, thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this show and every show that we do. And with that, EJ, your first gem, please.
Jihaad Campbell, one of the first guys I watched in this class. So linebacker, Alabama, one of the first guys I watched that I just kind of sat back in my chair and went, I don't know why more people aren't saying his name. And this was a couple of months ago. I had a feeling as we went through the process, as often happens, yes, he would be at the top of the linebacker list, but people would start talking about him in a very different tone, and that's already started happening. We saw it happen around the combine as well. Physically very talented. He's 6'2", 235, more versatile than most linebackers in this draft. As we talk about this draft and talk about linebackers specifically, we got a lot of role players. We do not have a lot of multi-role players who are not only capable of doing a lot of things, but very good at doing a lot of things. So just an example of that, when we were at the combine, a couple of teams, well, more than a couple, probably 8 or 10 teams asked him to stay after the drills and do the pass rush specific drills that the DEs and the edges do. And he looked fast and fluid doing it. If a team wants to deploy him that way on 3rd down, I think they're going to get a lot out of him. He's so smooth. He's explosive. Once he's committed to tracking down a ball carrier, he is like lightning. He gets on them very, very quickly, usually more quickly than they thought he was going to be there. And you could tell because they are not ready for impact when he shows up. Doesn't overrun plays, even though he has all that speed. He shows up under control. I really like that. Long arms makes it really hard to throw around him in zone coverage. He elevates in those zone passing lanes and makes himself a problem. So again, multi-role shows up. He can really hurt an offense in multiple ways, going forwards, going backwards, denying them in the pass game. Really good eyes, gets moving early. Again, that's always really cool to see when you've got a physically talented player that also you can tell studies, tendencies, gap pulls. He keys off all that stuff and gets moving very, very quickly. 100% will lay a hat on somebody. It's a must for me with a linebacker. It's a must for with most players. Cornerbacks that don't hit, I don't want them. Linebackers that don't hit, hey, it's if they don't bite when they're puppies, they're not going to bite when they're dogs.
It's kind of the job description there.
That's it, right? Go get somebody, and he is all about that. It is a rare combination of skills for an inside linebacker these days. It's what drew me to his tape. It's what makes me smile when I watch him, and it's definitely what makes him my first gem.
He feels to me like the modern Sam linebacker, right? And I think there's been so much hybridization in the NFL, especially as kind of nickel has become the predominant defense. I don't want to say everything looks the same, but structurally, there's a lot of similarities from defense to defense to defense. I think body types can be different across different teams, but most everybody, it's like, all right, if we're in nickel, we're going to have a 4 down front, whether it's 3 big bodies and 1 small body, or, 2 traditional edge types and 2 traditional defensive tackle types. Sometimes it's a nose prototype and 3 techs. Sometimes it's 2 guys that could be 3 techs or a 2-eye. But okay, we got a 4-man surface. We got 2 linebackers. We got 5 DBs. Most defenses are like that. And he is a linebacker type where he can be one of those 2 off-ball linebackers, or if you wanted to bring on a different off-ball linebacker and then use him as one of your edges, if you want to be like a 3-3-5 type team, that when we go into nickel and we have a 4-man surface, he's one of the edges, even though he plays off-ball linebacker on like rundowns, you could do that too. And we see that with certain guys around the league, like Andrew Van Ginkel, who's a name that we constantly bring up as like the Sam prototype. And it's because he's one of the best ones. Or Kyle Van Noy for the last decade has been that type of prototype. But Jihaad Campbell is that, but even more talented. And that's saying a lot because those guys are really, really talented. But he is a ridiculous athlete. His off-ball linebacker tape is great. His edge tape, I think, is inconsistent, but you see the flashes of brilliance, and I think he can become as good of an outside pass rusher as Andrew Van Ginkel and Kyle Van Noy have proven to be. I think he's a little further away from being that, but not because he doesn't have the juice, more so he just doesn't have the experience. But again, if you have that kind of Sam linebacker type, who, if we're in base personnel against a 12 personnel look on offense or a 2-back look on offense, and he's on the line of scrimmage as a Sam linebacker, and then a nickel he plays edge, or if we have a dedicated edge and we want to play off-ball linebacker, nickel, just that kind of movable chess piece type linebacker, like that gives a defensive coordinator so many options, right? So many options for how to deploy his guys. And it also almost kind of insulates you from injury a little bit if you have somebody who can do both roles. So I think he is ideal in that role, or rather multi-role. As for how high he's going to go, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. Because where do you take a linebacker these days? Especially one where it's like he's part edge rusher, part off ball, and you're not 100% sure what he's going to be doing 100% of the time. Like, where do you take that kind of talent? I don't really have an answer for you. Because as good as the best guys are in this archetype, none of them go in the first round. So it's like he would be the first one that I can recall off the top of my head in that archetype that wasn't leaning towards just being a full-time edge like Micah Parsons was, but as far as somebody who does both. Leonard Floyd, who ended up kind of basically being an edge player anyway in the long run, but like he's the last one I can remember where it's like that's a Sam linebacker, and he played Sam linebacker, and I think he went in the top 11 picks. And it's been a while since that. So it's not something you see get taken high all the time, but if any of them were going to, I think it would be Jihaad Campbell.
Yeah, it just takes one team, and again, there's not that many pure first round grades. They are certainly going to run out before the first round picks do, and it's going to be dealer's choice. And a team that sees him as that valuable piece and understands that they could deploy him that way might spend a first round pick on him. Tradition out the window, there's not that many of them. So is he one of the most 32 talented players in this draft? I think that's, marginally true. He's right there, but we always see this in the last 5 to 7 picks of the first round. It just comes down to a team and going, well, if we don't take him, who's next? And do we get any semblance of the same type of role versatility out of the next linebacker? And I think the answer is not really.
Yeah, especially in this linebacker class. We did a companion piece over on the Patreon for all patrons. By the way, if you're a patron, go check that out. As your reminder, if you didn't see the notification already, we talked about, the group of linebackers after the top group, right? So Demetrius Knight, Jeffrey Bassa, Barrett Carter. The top group is Jihaad Campbell and Chris Paul and Carson Schwetzinger and to a degree, Jalen Walker, but kind of, not really, sort of, right? But when you get after that first group of linebackers, you get into the second group, none of them are versatile. So it's like, if you want a versatile linebacker that can do more than one thing, you kind of got to take them early. Again, I'll invite you all to go listen to that episode if you're a patron. If you're not a patron, you can also find that linked in the description below. We have a whole bunch of bonus content that's already been released and is coming the rest of draft season. But that is a good transition to my first gem, which is another position that doesn't typically get drafted in the first round that often, or at least not as often as it should. And that's safety. Every single year we see this happen where the best safety in the class goes later than he probably should. And I would say even the second and third and fourth best safety, are going to be better than like the seventh edge or the ninth offensive tackle. And they still go after those guys too, because they're seen as premium positions and safety is not, even if they're better football players, which is why Budda Baker goes on day 2 and Jesse Bates goes on day 2 and Eddie Jackson goes on day 3 and all these great safeties. Eddie didn't last that long, but he was great at his peak. They go later than they should. And I think that's going to happen with my first gem, and that's Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State. He's not going to be the first safety drafted because Malaki Starks exists, but I think in a lot of safety classes, he probably would be. We're talking about a nearly 6'2 safety, 215 pounds with 32.5-inch arms. He is big for the position. Really, really big. And yet at his size, still extremely explosive, has long speed and short area burst. He's fluid. He has great feet. He tackles better than literally every other safety in this class. Back in 2023, the last time we saw him have a full healthy season, he had a 0% missed tackle rate on defense. No missed tackles against the run, no missed tackles when tracking down guys in space against the pass. He only had one the entire year, and it was as a gunner on special teams. And, I think he got completely forgotten, including by myself. I didn't start watching him till recently because I was going through this whole safety class. And I was like, how is nobody talking about Kevin Winston Jr.? And it's because he got hurt. He played one game this year before he had a partially torn ACL. But coming into the year, he was seen as somebody who could sniff the first round. And somehow just, we all forgot about him. Like he got hurt and then he just ceased to exist. Even though he is a big, fluid, explosive safety that was a team captain, is incredibly smart, tackles well, can do everything from play in the post to down in the box. He can play in the slot. He's got excellent instincts. Like this dude has the dream profile. Like he models his game after Derwin James, and you see that in every single snap. The Derwin James-ness to his game. And I'm like, how is he not being talked about as a top 32 talent in the class? Like, let's take the injury thing out of it. Like, how is he not being talked about like that? And it's because he's a safety. And people just don't value safety. Even if he's going to get drafted early on day 2 and he's going to be recovered from his injury and he's going to have an amazing rookie year and everybody's going to look back and say, how the hell did he not go in the first round? And we're going to look at the litany of safeties that's happened to in the last decade. and we're going to say, damn, we did it again. We took the premium position that was a lesser talent over the guy who's just a really good football player. And Kevin Winston Jr. is a really, really, really good football player. If somebody has a reason for him to not be considered that high of a talent, I would love to hear it. I don't see one on tape. Like, I really don't see a weakness here.
It's funny you bring up Eddie Jackson, because if anybody, he is the Eddie Jackson Memorial Award winner this year for a guy that got injured and fell out of the public eye. Eddie's injury was later, and I would say cleaner. It was just a broken bone. Very few people had reservations about that, and still he ended up falling way farther than he should have. Kevin Winston, it's all about the timing of his injury. It's not the severity or anything else. Knee reconstruction, or in this case, just ACL reconstruction, is very common these days. It happens to a lot of athletes. I was standing next to a guy at, the OU Pro Day yesterday. I looked down. He's got that little scar. It's a very little scar anymore. It was done arthroscopically. Lots of players have that, and it doesn't reduce their value. So the timing of the injury, got one game, part of another one, and that was it. He was on the shelf from early September. And you have to go back to 2023. And when you do, yeah, I'm with you. You go, oh my God. Like, look at the size of this guy. Look at how much ground he can cover. He can absolutely wheel when he opens it up. Hits, takes up tons of space in the passing lane. Like you said, very smart player, captain, played for a high-profile program, so strength of schedule is not a thing. Like, all of it is there. It's just he got one game, and then the candle got snuffed out. That's actually going to work in his favor, not for his draft status, but for his actual pro prospects, because he is going to be basically a full year removed from his ACL injury by the time the NFL season starts, which is a tremendous bonus. We see guys not regain their full burst within that first year. He's almost going to be done with that clock and getting to the point where that knee is getting stronger, and we hope to see him regain that same amount of juice that he had, because there's a ton of it there. And like you said, some team's going to reel him in as a tremendous value, because not only position he plays, but he's just out of sight, out of mind right now.
All right, gem number 2 for you. What you got?
We'll stay in the safety pool. We will talk about Malaki Starks. We have already talked about Malaki Starks. Lots of people are talking about Malaki Starks. He is not a hidden gem, but he is a gem nonetheless. He is a versatile hunter in the secondary, really good eyes, rarely fooled. Physically very similar to Brian Branch, and I got to credit my buddy Nick Baumgartner for bringing this up. He aligns and plays like him too. He will drop down into the nickel. He's that classic sort of star player. He's got role versatility. He'll go one-on-one against the slot receiver. You were talking about safety corner value. I mean, he's doing the same job. So he's got that in his game. Moves like a linebacker towards ball carriers, always sort of gaining ground. Loves to hit folks from depth. That's very important with all the teams that play quarters in the NFL now. You've got to be able to come from 12, 13 yards, bring a head of steam, and close off a gap. He is fully schooled in that style of defense. Takes away a lot of potential throws before they get thrown. This is really important. A lot of times people see a number of throws completed. I like to look at number of throws attempted per coverage snaps. He's got over 500 coverage snaps, and they just didn't throw at him very often because he's in good position, and the quarterback's looking at him and going, I don't want to try that. Like, I'm not going to try and squeeze that in there. That's not going to work for me. Now, it doesn't come up as a stat other than, yes, I was in coverage and they didn't target my guy. So it's kind of a quiet stat, but he grades out extremely well in that category. He can elevate and high point the ball on deep throws. Had a couple of classic ones this year that made all the highlight reels, top 10 plays on ESPN. Plays with tremendous confidence, and it's earned. This is confidence born of demonstrated ability. He has been there and done that against top competition time and again. He is, tested. This is not, there's not a lot of rawness to Malaki Starks. He is going to be able to come in, perform at a high level from early on. Smooth and controlled mover. We saw this at the combine. Again, didn't run the fastest times, but once he got to the drills, clear line of demarcation between him and the rest of the safeties. He was the best safety in all the drills we watched. And it was just obvious from the first time he started running. It's like, oh, damn, he knows what he's doing.
It was just different. It
100%.
just looked different.
So I love Malaki Starks. I love his game. I think his pro prospects are very similar to Brian Branch. He's going to come in. He's going to play well as a rookie. He's going to have a team put a lot on him in terms of responsibility in a defense, and he's going to be just fine with that because both physically and mentally, he can handle it.
he had the most coverage snaps out of any safety in this class. As you might expect, he had 512 coverage snaps this year and gave up only 14 first downs, which is extraordinarily impressive. Like, that's essentially one first down a game that he gave up. And considering the level of competition and who he was going up against week after week, I mean, I really can't speak highly enough about how reliable he is in virtually every single role, whether he's in the post, if you're like a super quarters heavy defense and you need somebody who can like match down the field and play on an island, like you ask a lot of safeties to do in quarters, he can do that as well. He just does everything. Like there's nothing that you look at on tape that, similar to Kevin Winston, where you say like, oh, he has to improve there. If you want him to be a post safety, he can be a post safety. If you're a quarters heavy team and you need somebody who, hey, slot receivers running a vertical route and he runs 4-4-1, like we need a guy who can match that down the field with no help, he can do that too. If you want him to play in a nickel type role and either tackle in the screen game or again carry something vertical and then get a PBU down the sideline, he could do either of those things. He can blitz, like you could put him in the box as like a dime linebacker to play the run for you. Like he just does everything. He does absolutely everything. And he's got this again, I'll use this name frequently, like Jesse Bates type quality to him, where he just makes everything look easy. He makes everything look smooth. He almost doesn't look as dynamic as some of the other safeties in this class, like say Nick Amenwuri, just as a mover, or like even some like the flashy tackles that Andrew Makubas make. Like he doesn't have a lot of that flash to him, but he doesn't lose. Like he just never loses. And to have a safety in your back end that doesn't make mistakes, is a super efficient mover, is always in the right spot, is more than athletic enough for the position. So you don't worry about him doing his job deep down the field. Like just having a guy in the back of your defense that doesn't lose must be so nice as a DC. Like you're never worried about him. Like you can focus on the other 10 guys and just know Malaki is going to be Malaki. Like I think that is such an underappreciated aspect to his game. He is just the one constant that you can rely on. And for that reason alone, among many others, I think he's going to be a top 20 pick.
Yeah, versatility, like you said, free safety, he lined there 400 times, slot 271 times, another 215 snaps in the box. So really doesn't matter where you want to put him or, again, what you want him to do. He is not the greatest blitzer, I will admit. He could use a little bit of work. He's not terrible at it, but it's my least favorite role for him. Literally any other job you could give him in the secondary, I'm completely comfortable with him performing it as a rookie. And there aren't many rookies I can say that about.
All right, my second gem, Omarr Norman-Lott from Tennessee. This defensive line class is extremely deep. Everybody knows that. And he is one of the names that I think has gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit, especially because there's like 43 techniques that everybody has to watch this draft season. And I got to him, or rather I moved him up my priority list because Trev and Connor just keep talking about him over and over and over again. So I was like, okay, I'm going to watch Omarr Norman-Lott. And I was just going to do him and James Pierce at the same time. I attempted to watch James Pierce. I gave it an honest effort. And I just kept watching 55. I was like, son of a bitch, Trev was right. Like you try to watch one guy and you can't stop watching the other one. Yep. He didn't get that many snaps. I will say that because Tennessee does a whole bunch of rotation in there. For instance, he has like less than 90 run defense snaps the entire year, which is pretty crazy. Like they pretty much just used him as a pass rusher. But when he was on the field as a pass rusher, I say this with all due sincerity, I think he might have been their best one, like even over James Pierce, as far as like disruption and just the fuck shit up factor of a guy. Yep. Like I think that he did that more than James Pierce. He is kind of a sawed-off shotgun at DT 6'2", 290. So you compare that to like the 310, 315 monsters in this class. He has a lot less mass to him, which again, He's a pass rusher. I get it. But that doesn't mean that he's weak. He does rush with power. Like, he does have the ability to cave in the pocket with power. And the way that he does it is what fascinates me the most, because he does it with not just strength, but also hand usage. Like, he has this nasty Akeem Hicks like fork move. And Akeem used to do this all the time, where he would grab the wrist of the guard or the tackle, or whoever he was going against, and he would lift up their arm and kind of control their arm. And so they'd have to try to like anchor and then re-anchor with literally one hand, and he wouldn't give it back. He would just hold it up above him. And Omarr Norman-Lott does that as well. He just grabs their wrists and lifts it while he keeps kind of just pressing on him with his other hand and just caves in the pocket. And I love that. like it's so rare to see a player his age use a fork move that frequently, let alone all the other stuff that he does too, with the clubs and the swims and all. Like, he does all like the normal pass rush moves, but like, you don't see guys his age grab a guard's wrist and just hold it up above him like he's an older brother, playing in the pool. Like, he's just a rare kind of interior pass rush threat. He had the highest pass rush win rate of any interior defensive lineman in this class at 26%, which is a monster number. Like, that is insanely high. And unlike a player that I'm going to talk about on my gems list later today, he's a finisher. He only had 96 pass rush snaps on true dropbacks this year, so non-screen, non-RPO, non-play action. 96 pass rush snaps, and on those 96 snaps, he got 6 sacks. Like, that is unbelievable efficiency as a pass rusher. So I kind of resent Tennessee a little bit for not playing him more. But when he was on the field, like, he was their best defensive lineman by a lot of metrics. And I know James Pierce, like, overall, like, he's probably going to get drafted higher because he's an edge player, and like, analytically, like, analytics are also very kind to James Pierce. Like, he has a very good analytics profile. But like, Omarr Norman-Lott, God, when he was out there, I couldn't stop watching him. And when you also have another player like James Pierce on the defensive line, if you take all the oxygen out of the room away from James Pierce, you have to be a pretty special player. And he's a pretty special player to me.
I think he is. I think his power is what makes him special. And again, a lot of people look at the size and think, oh, well, he's not going to play that way. He's going to be quicker. He's going to get underneath people. He's going to use speed, and he has those things as well, but he plays with power and torque at his size. You said sawed-off shotgun. Reminds me a little bit of Aeneas Peebles, who we saw as the defensive tackle, who, again, is a similar size profile, but just plays like a Tasmanian devil. I think Omarr Norman-Lott has even more power in terms of the way he will control arms and hands of offensive linemen away from him, and basically sort of make holes and then blast through them, and that's really what you see, but you don't see it a lot, which I think is one of the things sort of holding him up, is people saying, yeah, but can he do it all the time? Will he hold up? If you give him more snaps, will the production rates hold? All of those things, and those are yet to be determined, but I think all the things that you mentioned are what puts him on NFL teams' radar and will get him drafted fairly highly, even in this extremely deep defensive tackle class. Typically, if you had a defensive tackle like that, he would go pretty high just because of the numbers. But in this class, I think there's a decent chance that he would fall. I don't think he's going to fall because of the quality of those reps. When they really look at those, there's going to be at least a handful of teams that go, no, I think that's going to continue if we give him more chances. Let's give him more chances.
Yeah, to me, he's the Kalijah Cansey of this draft. And I know it's very high praise because Cansey was extremely productive in college and then got to the NFL, and he's been good in the NFL as well. Like, I think he is that type of player, which is he's our interior designated pass rusher, and then we'll just kind of keep putting more and more on his plate as we go until he shows he can't do it. So I love him so much. He's so good. And I'm mad at myself that I didn't watch him before we got to the combine, because I think I would have been all over him at the combine, but yeah, whatever. There's like 250 guys to get through. Can't do them all. All right. Next up for you, who you got?
Going to stay in the defensive tackle class because, again, it is deep historically, so it's a very good class, and another player who I just can't stop watching Because he reminds me of another player, I'll talk about that at the end, but really it's about the impact he has when he's on the field. That's Alfred Collins, the defensive tackle from Texas. Tremendous length and size combination, regularly occupied two full gaps for Texas. I'm not talking about a gap and a half. I'm talking about both A gaps are mine and a little bit more. And you can see it in the way they line up. It's crazy. Like they'll have Alfred Collins in the middle as like a shade and two true fives. Mm-hmm. And if you know alignments, that means there's 2.5 gaps on both sides of him, and they're fine with it. And it worked. And it worked because of who Alfred Collins was this year. He was a very good younger player at Texas. A lot of people got on him because he didn't stay low. His leverage wasn't always great. That was the knock on him, is that he played high. But again, the flashes were there. We talk about flashes with a lot of young defensive tackles. There is a lot of burst in Alfred Collins for a guy his height. The quickness is unbelievable. When he does get free, when he does torque somebody out of the way in front of him, he's on the quarterback very, very quickly. He can really run in the short area. He's not one of those guys that's going to open it up and chase a guy down 40 yards down the field. But within 10 to 15 yards, which is his phone booth, he is very quick, like surprisingly quick for a guy his size. Stays square versus the run. You can tell he really concentrated on that this year. I watched an interview with him that's a University of Texas podcast, and he was really talking about that. He was like, everybody kept coming to me saying, what's the knock in my game? They said, you play too high, got to really sink, got to hold those double teams and still make the play. He did that a lot this year. He's got really good torque in his shoulders to basically close those gaps. If he gets his inside hand lower than yours off the snap, you are done.
Yeah, you're dead. Sorry.
Sorry, he's beating you. It's over. So very good at also getting fully turned. So the offensive lineman either has to take the holding call or lay off. He makes it obvious enough for the refs that, like, hey, I'm completely sideways here and I'm still moving forward. If he's got me, it's because he's basically holding me around the ribcage or trying to. His best position is a question, but it's not because he can't play up and down the line. It's just really where he's going to have the most effect. Again, they line him up at 0. They line him up at 1. They line him up at 2I. They line him up at 3. Even sometimes they had him out at 5, not as often. That was much less common because he has so much value in the inside of that defense. So the player I said he reminds me of, his body type reminds me a lot of Chris Jones at Mississippi State. They're both 6'6". They both have 34-inch arms and are quicker than you think. Collins was 332. Jones was 310 at the combine. The vertical jump for Collins, 26, 24.5 for Chris Jones. Broad jump, 8 foot. Jones was 8'10". So we're looking at a similar size profile, similar quickness in short areas, similar length. Now, I'm not saying that Alfred Collins is going to be Chris Jones because Chris Jones has obviously continued to mature in the league. He's a Super Bowl champion. Collins has that kind of potential. And again, the growth between last season and this season shows you the arrows pointing up, and he's committed to sort of polishing his game and using all those skills that he has. He's already very good, but he hasn't reached his ceiling yet. And I think that's probably the most tantalizing part of this entire profile is you're already getting a really good, capable, versatile, strong player that has room to grow. And that's what NFL teams want.
He is a very, and I'm not using this word lightly, unique player, because he is one of the few interior pass rushers that I've ever seen that has a higher win rate when he's inside of a 3 technique compared to being a 3 technique or outside. And a lot of guys, if you put them as a 2I or a 2 or a shade or a true 0, like they're not getting anything done. And then if you put them as a 3 or like a 4I or a 5, where they have a little bit more space, a little bit more runway, you give them some 2-way goes, all of a sudden they open up and their win rate like doubles. He has a higher pass rush win rate as a nose tackle than he does as a 3 technique, and it's because of his overwhelming kick your ass type of power. Like when he gets on a center one-on-one and he just can get his hands into their chest and run them the fuck over, there's nothing you could do about it. Like absolutely nothing you could do about it. And he reminds me a lot of Akeem Hicks in that way. Like Akeem Hicks against almost every center in the league was not fair. And yes, he had, the fluidity and the twitch and all the Akeem Hicks stuff that we already brought up, the fork move and everything. But when Akeem would just line up and maul the shit out of you, like especially for a center that was like 305 pounds, you were dead. Like you were just dead. And that's what I loved about Akeem is like you could put him as a nose or as a 3 technique or as a 5 technique, and he was going to win anywhere. But the fact that he could win as a nose was what made him a very different type of player compared to most of the league. Because a lot of guys, like you put them that far inside and they disappear. Alfred Collins is like that. Like the further inside he goes, like the more you want him to just beat people up, he's going to beat them up. Like that is his style. Not to mention, oh, by the way, he's a dominant run defender too. Like some of the reps that he has on tape, not just against centers, but against guards and tackles where he's stacking and shedding. Like it's...
He just waits to chuck people out of the way.
Oh my God.
He has full control of them with both arms, but he's just kind of soft playing them with one hand. Like it looks like he's got it on there, but he's just waiting. And like the back shows up and he just goes, yank. And then he's just sitting there all, 6'6" wingspan of him waiting for the back. And back's like, oh my God, like, whoops. I thought
like,
there was
you could
space
make a
there.
Strong case that if you put a freshman against him, that constitutes child abuse. Like that's how dominant it was. So yep. I think he's great. I really do. I think he's a great player. And he's another one of these guys where I don't know if he's going to go in the first round because a lot of teams are going to see him as either a 5 technique or a nose and not as like a get up the field 3 technique. And 5 techniques and noses sometimes slip to day 2, but that doesn't mean that he's not like worthy of consideration in the back of the first round. He just might end up going at like 50 something because of the spot that he plays.
Yeah, I'm in the 40s. I'm thinking that some team's going to look at the combination and go, yeah, we want that. So we'll see. That's where I've got him ranked is somewhere, late 30s to late 40s. After late 40s, it's just every pick that is the next pick for Alfred Collins. Like he's not going to last much more than that.
And I know a lot of people at home are probably thinking like, okay, guys, you can't just list 50 players that are going to be first round picks. The point that I'm trying to convey here is after you get past like the top group of guys, like the top 10 to 12 players.
Yeah.
Like it's a very wide middle in this class. Like it's more of it's a thin top and a wide middle, I guess is the best way to describe it like that, right? Where the difference in grade between the player that's going to go at like 20 and the player that's going to go at 50 is not that big. It's really not. So when we're saying like, oh, Kevin Winston Jr. could be a first round pick, or Alfred Collins could be a late first round pick, or we don't know where Jihaad Campbell is going to go, or like we don't know where Josaiah Stewart or Derrick Harmon are going to go. It's because you could kind of argue for anywhere between 20 and 50 and be correct. Like that's just the type of class that it is. And, some people might say that it's an unsexy class because of that, because it is so undefined. To me, that's what makes it intriguing, is that we have no idea and that all these guys are graded, right next to each other, because that means every single mock draft we do is going to be different from somebody else's because everybody sees these players just similarly enough to be different, if that makes sense.
I love looking at the rankings this year as doing what we do. It's great once you do your own rankings to start looking at other people's rankings. I don't look at other people's rankings until I have enough of the class over 100 ranked so I feel comfortable that I'm not going to be influenced by those things. But it's so fun for me to go to another analyst who I respect and look at their rankings for a particular group. Let's just say defensive tackle. And look at where they have some of the guys that I, have ranked. Sometimes it's a lot lower, especially in this class. Sometimes it's a lot higher. That's really fun. It's going to keep us on our toes on draft day. So the draft day live stream is going to be, I think, more interesting this year than it's been in years because there's going to be picks out of left field where we're like, what? I mean, that's usually when it was the Belichick era, a safety from Rutgers in the 3rd round who we'd never heard of. That's going to be happening like late 1st round on through the 2nd, all through day 2, and it's going to be a blast.
All right, my next gem is a name that I just mentioned, Josaiah Stewart, edge rush extraordinaire from Michigan. I said the Omarr Norman-Lott pass rush win rate at 26% was crazy. Here's a number for you, 42.4% pass rush win rate on true dropbacks. That is the highest number that I can find in the last 10 years at the FBS level on starter snaps, because he was a starter. Like, there's some rotational guys, they play like 40 snaps and, you know, they get a bunch of pressures, and because of small sample size, the math is kind of wonky. But on a sample size the size of Josaiah Stewart, no FBS edge rusher has won that often on true dropbacks. Not the Bosa's. Like, he's like 10% higher than the Bosa's. Not Myles Garrett. Like, Trey Hendrickson got close once upon a time, but, you know, still like a 7 or 8% gap there too. So if we're just talking about somebody who can get the quarterback, it's Josaiah Stewart. And I'm going to throw some more stats at you just to kind of hammer this point home. So he was 32nd in pass rush snaps at just 142 this year, because unfortunately Michigan didn't have as many leads as they did the year before, so he didn't get as many true opportunities to get after the quarterback that weren't just screens and RPOs and play action. So 142 pass rush snaps on true dropbacks. That was 32nd in this class. And yet he still led the class in plays where he beat a block one-on-one, or in some cases 2-on-1. If you watch the tape, like, Chips didn't do a whole lot against him anyway. He had 28. That's 5 more than Abdul Carter, who plays in the same conference, by the way. And he had 70 less snaps than Abdul Carter, because I included Carter's playoff games just to make it closer. But to outproduce the guy who's probably going to go at minimum in the top 4 picks, probably in the top 2 picks, in the same conference on 70 less snaps, like, that is unreal. Like, just completely unreal. He only had 2 unblocked pressures the entire year, so he earned everything that he got. He's also, by the way, a phenomenal run defender, extremely tough. Doesn't matter if you're pulling a guard his way or if he's got to set a hard edge. Like, yes, he's 6'1". Yes, he has sub 32-inch arms. Doesn't matter. He wants all the smoke. He's going to kick your ass. And I was talking to a buddy of mine, by the way, who's friends with the Michigan D-line coach. And this is a fun nugget that I got. Apparently, the Michigan D-line coach called him, and I quote, easily the toughest player on the team. This is Michigan.
Yep.
Right? This is a strength and conditioning program that commits like borderline crimes against humanity to build the toughest program in college football. And that dude's the toughest dude on the team? Like, Mason Graham's there, Kenneth Grant's there, Will Johnson, Colston Loveland, like all the offensive linemen. Like, he's the toughest guy in the room. And he's 6'1", 250. He's not the biggest guy, but he's the one that nobody messed with. Yep. So I say, damn the size. Look at the tape. He plays like he's 270, even though he's 250. His character's off the charts. What am I missing here? Like, analytics-wise, production-wise, off-field-wise, like, what is wrong with looking at Josaiah Stewart as like the 32nd pick to the Eagles? And, 3 years from now, we're going to look back and it's going to be the same thing that we did with Nolan Smith. We're like, what the hell were we all thinking? Why did we let Howie get him? Am I crazy here?
I don't think so. He was one of the first, I'd say, non-highlight edges that I watched in this class. And the reason was the same thing you were saying about Tennessee. You go in, there was, Mason Graham. I watched about a game and a half of Mason Graham, and I'm like, man, that edge is killing everybody. Like, Mason is a wrecker in his own right, but that edge is making, just like you said, a lot of hay on his own against double teams underneath the arms of much taller tackles. Like, he kind of reminds me of a Wolverine, right? He's not the biggest, he's not the tallest, he's not the strongest, but like, everybody kind of looks at him like, I don't really want to mess with that. And there's a good reason. So, he lived up to his logo, and that's a rarity in college football. But I think this edge class is really interesting because there's the big guys that tested well and they're super flashy, or they have all the traits. There's a lot of traits-based rushers in this class that people are looking at going, yeah, but if I could just make him produce, he'd be amazing. And I'm like, well, we've done this before. Let's not. And then here's Josaiah Stewart, producing like crazy with definitely below average measurables, but against top competition, again, on a line where there was a lot of talent. You'd say, oh, well, he got a lot of one-on-ones. He did, but he also late in games got a lot of chips because people were like, that guy's wrecking us. We can't just let him keep doing it. So it wasn't, like you said, all unblocked pressures or easy stuff. He earned it all, and he's still not getting the accolades. So I don't think you're crazy. I think he's a tremendous value in this class. He is not going to go up high. People are going to, especially with pass rushers, they are going to gamble on the traits. They're going to gamble on length and speed, everything else. And Josaiah Stewart's going to sit there until some smart team comes along, picks him up, and sure enough, he's going to be maybe a rotational edge to start. And then they're going to go, that time we thought they were going to pass and we put him in, he stuffed the run by himself. He's not really a liability. Maybe we should give him some more snaps. And they will, and he'll produce. And here we go again.
You and I have talked to like 7 or 8 Michigan players over the last couple of years, right? And we always ask for fun stories about their strength and conditioning program and,
AKA hell on earth.
Oh my God, like actual human rights violations. And every time we get a story, we're like, God, that doesn't sound legal. And it's probably not, but damn, it works. Like they produce tough players. And for the coach to be like, oh yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah,
man, that just speaks volumes. I can't get off that. Plus the tape is good.
Yeah, it reminds me of like David Montgomery and all the stories of him coming out of college, right? He's super quiet. And everybody's like, what's he really like? And everybody's like, first in, toughest guy, longest workouts, will stay later than everybody else, and just leaves, says nothing, never complains. And you're like, sure enough, that carries over. That is a trait you want.
All right, next gem. Who you got?
This is my, we talked about the Eddie Jackson Memorial Award winner. This is my Josh Downs Memorial Award winner in terms of, you remember, if you've been watching Gems for a while, the year that Josh Downs came out, and I had him on my list and off my list and on my list and off my list. Finally, like the day of recording Offensive Gems, I was like, I cannot leave him off my list. I cannot stop watching him. I can't stop enjoying his tape. He's going on the list. And that turned out pretty well. This one's Cobee Bryant, the corner from Kansas who we met at the Shrine Bowl. And hate on his size all you want. Although he did weigh in at the combine at 180, which was a major victory for him because I am sure he did not.
Gallon of water in the hallway, probably.
Or 5.
Yeah.
So I am sure he played in the low 160s early in his Kansas career, maybe low 170s, but he bulked up for the combine and weighed out at 180, which is good. But I don't care about the size. Same argument as Josaiah Stewart. He is an absolute dog. He is an aggressive defender who just wants to fight and back it up play after play, and he does. He will come up and smack you in the mouth. You might look at the size and say, oh, he's 170 pounds. He doesn't play the run. Baloney. He's going to put that to rest in the first quarter. So skilled in coverage as well, sticky defender in man coverage, and he's going to make you earn everything. He's very good in terms of awareness and ball skills. He's opportunistic. He's always looking for the ability to say, look, my guy's not doing anything. I'm going to drop off because I think the quarterback's going to throw it back there and I can go mess stuff up. And he does that in a way that doesn't make coaches mad, if that's a funny way to say that. But a lot of times coaches will be like, stick with your guy. That's the way the defense is built. Cobe's smart enough to know they're not really. That's just window dressing. I'm going to go over there and screw stuff up. And he's awesome at it. He's an agent of chaos that way. He will also let you know about it. He is extremely mouthy in a good way for a corner. I'll give you a story. There was a certain wide receiver at the Shrine Bowl who did not have a great first day, as is bound to happen at all-star games. Some guys haven't played football in a while. He had a rough first day.
Because of Cobee, by the way.
Mostly because of Cobee, but some other players as well. 3 days later, Cobee was still on him about it. Cobee was in street clothes at this point. He'd shut it down after 2 days. He was still ragging that wide receiver about, man, you weren't shit on day one. Like, why do you think I care about what you do? And it started to wear on the guy. And
my favorite was that go ball. I think it was on the 3rd day where they threw up a go ball in the corner. I think it was like out of phase because he'd been on a move, and Cobee was like shouting, "Don't worry, you got time." He rallied and got the PBU and was like, "I told you." He's such a good shit talker. Oh, I want him so bad.
He is a pro shit talker, 100%. And we've seen these guys in the league, and they are effective. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has drawn a lot of flags. He gets under people's skin. Cobee is going to be able to do that. He talks a good game, but more importantly, he plays a good game, and that's where it's based. I guarantee if he ever meets that receiver in the league, it's going to be the first thing he mentions in warmups. He is going to be on him from the jump about, oh, yeah, you remember Shrine Bowl? Yeah, you couldn't catch it then either. And it is going to be on all day long. I love Cobee Bryant. I could not leave him off this list. And yes, I want him on my team.
I think he's your favorite corner's favorite corner, right? Like, just the way that he plays. Like, he plays corner like a number one.
Yes.
He's not going to be a number one. I'm not saying he will be just because of like physical dimension and everything like that. But like he plays with the confidence of a much larger human, I guess is the best way to put it. And he reminds me a lot of Dane Jackson when Dane was coming out, right? Who was also not a huge guy, but he would just play so aggressively. And he would, he would almost act like he was a 6'2", 200-pound corner when he wasn't. And just through like sheer confidence and chutzpah, he would win. And I adore him. I love his style. He's going to be like the ideal number 2 corner in the league, right? That, if you need him to man up, he can man up. If you want to play zone and just make plays on instincts, he could do that. Again, he's not very big, but he will tackle against the run. And he's going to be cheap because he's not going to go on day one. And he might not go till like round 3 because of his size. He's going to be a cheap starting corner for you. Like, who doesn't love that?
Everybody wants that. And I think once you get this guy on your team, any of the coaches that were at Shrine Bowl, any of the scouts that were at Shrine Bowl, anybody that's visited Kansas while he played there, everybody says the same thing. Like, that's the dog over there. Like, just leave the dog alone. He will do his job. He will tell you about it, but he is going to man up and be able to handle his business. And NFL teams want that confidence in their corners. They're going to see the ability, and they're going to go, yep, this is our guy. Like, this is plug and play. Let's go.
I don't know exactly what day this episode's dropping, but I think we should have an interview with Cobee that we recorded back at Shrine Bowl dropping shortly after this. So keep an eye out for that. Just watch that. Trust me, you'll understand why we love him. He's hard not to love. My 4th gem, keeping it with the DB class, I'd be willing to bet this is going to be the highest drafted player from this whole episode. That's Jahdae Barron from Texas. Not the biggest guy. Sensing a theme here. He's 5'10", 195. So he's bigger than Cobee, but he's not like super big. 10-3 in the broad, 35 vert. So solid explosive numbers. But really what shows up the most is his 40 and his 10-yard split. 4.39 in the 40, 1.52 10-yard split. Those are elite numbers. And it shows up in his short area explosiveness as well as his long speed and his recovery speed. Like, he can freaking run. But it's not just the athleticism that landed him on this list, because there's a lot of good athletes at corner. The reason why I love watching him is because stylistically, he reminds me a lot of Trent McDuffie. And I think if you put him at nickel, similarly to Trent McDuffie, he can have that kind of impact on a defense. He is a rare processor as a DB, as far as reading formations, receiver splits, motions, and just understanding concepts. The style that he kind of plays, like he's definitely more comfortable in zone because he can keep his eyes on the quarterback and the offensive line and just kind of read things out and then break on the ball. So he's more comfortable doing that. Not that he can't do man, but he just likes being able to see everything. And I think that's a big reason why he's more suited for nickel, because he can just kind of play with that, let's say, loosey-goosey, freeform jazz kind of style, right? Where he's just reading things and making plays. Like, I don't want him to just be a press corner outside that's going to turn his back to the quarterback and, shove a receiver into the boundary and just like, okay, yeah, he'll take his guy away, but he won't really get an opportunity to get his hands on the ball and impact the game like that. Like, he's just going to go kind of live in Narnia for 4 quarters. I want him near the ball. I want him with his eyes on the offense, which means nickel or safety. Probably nickel. knowing his preference when I asked him at the combine. Also can tackle really well. 10% missed tackle rate, which was 8th best among all corners in this class. So again, very solid, not spectacular. There were a couple corners that were like 3%, 5%, but still very, very solid. And when I did talk to him at combine, something that he told me about was his history as a boxer growing up, and how that experience growing up boxing helped him to become a better corner, and not necessarily for the reason you might think. It didn't help him become better at jamming at the line of scrimmage. It helped him get better feet and better eyes. So I'm going to roll that response right now and let him tell it, because he'll say it better than I can. You seem really comfortable, kind of playing like a loose bail technique when you're on the outside.
Yeah.
And the way that you kind of plant and drive, it's different than a lot of other DBs that play off coverage, that classic T-step. You kind of almost like have your eyes on the quarterback and the receivers, like that sidestep drive. Like, how did you develop that technique for kind of driving on stuff underneath?
Coach Joseph, my corner coach, he taught me that. He taught me how to read red light. He taught me how to read the quarterback's drop, the quarterback's progression, the O-line, if they're breaking the glass, if they're staying high. He taught me a lot of those things. And then also, you have to understand, I used to box 6th, 7th grade. So just understanding, you see a lot of things faster in your peripheral view. So if I can see the receiver right there and I can still have vision on the quarterback, I can see a lot of things. So people don't understand that, and then you could you're open up to guard a lot of things in a shuffle and things like that. Rather than kind of backpedaling, you're just kind of closing yourself to the quarterback. Now you can't see, so you see a lot of things from your peripheral view.
How did boxing help you? As far as when you were up there and pressing and jamming guys, how did boxing help you kind of develop that skill set?
Most definitely for footwork. I used to box with Ann Wolf when I was a little kid. Before we even touch a beanbag or anything, or even throw a punch, we would dance for 1:30 every single day, and kind of just moving the ring and things like that. So it helped with my footwork and just kind of just being patient. And boxing is a patient thing. When you step, you have to step just quietly and things like that. So just understanding that and then taking it to football field.
Now, I got about 5 minutes with him at the combine. I wish I had 3 times longer than that, because I loved talking to him. Like, he just gets it, right? He is a pro's pro. He understands football. He understands the work that goes into, not just developing at the position, but also, not regressing at the position, because just like you're studying receivers are studying you. And so he self-scouts really well. And he talked about how, self-scouting has made him a better player, and understanding like what are his tells and what is he doing that's kind of tipping off coverages and everything like that. Like, he just, for a 23, 24-year-old kid to talk about football the way he talks about it, like he's 30, with 2 kids and a mortgage, like, he's just rare. And then throw in the fact that he's a really good athlete and he tackles well. Like, that's a top 10 pick, folks. It really is. I don't know if you want to take a nickel in the top 10, or at least I would take a nickel in the top 10. I don't know if teams will take a nickel in the top 10, but if Ashton Jeanty is gone by 6, I'd put him at the Raiders. Honestly, I would. And I don't care that he's going to play inside for them. Like, he's going to be an impactful player. And for a team that is in the division of Trent McDuffie, and they see what Trent McDuffie does for KC, like, Vegas should know better than anybody. Like, if you have an opportunity to draft your own version of Trent McDuffie, who, by the way, was coached by the same coach that developed Trent McDuffie at Washington, you do it. Like, I don't care that he's a nickel corner. Like, he's really, really good. He's a top 10 player in this class. He should probably go in the top 10.
And they see how much Trent McDuffie's about to get paid, they can save themselves some money, even picking him in the top 10. He is a multi-role player. You could deploy him inside and outside. And again, that's because of his versatility, not only athletically, but mentally. And I'll just say attitude-wise, he hits, right? Corners that don't hit, I don't like him. I like Jahdae Barron. He will hit from the slot. He can absolutely fill the run. He understands, like you said, what his role is when he's there. It's not just my guy took care of my guy. It's, well, my guy wasn't the play. That means I've got to get by him and the blocker they're setting up and destroy the ball carrier. He does that with regularity. You see the quickness. You see the power. One of my favorite things about his game is that he doesn't ever seem to play with panic. And maybe it's because he is super confident in his athletic skill, and he studies, and he kind of sees what's going to happen before it happens, but he never looks like he gets caught out on film. He never looks ragged. He never looks like he's behind. He always looks like he is on time or ahead. And for a corner, that's a really impressive trait, and probably one of the reasons that he's not going to make it out of the top, I would say, 15 picks no matter what.
Even if you don't want to use the Trent comparison because it's so lofty, like, I think Kyler Gordon's a fair comparison.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of teams that look back and they'd be like, God, we would have taken Kyler Gordon in the first round if we knew that he was Kyler Gordon, right?
Yep.
So, I don't know. Good nickels it's so important. It really is.
They do a lot of things for you.
They do a lot of things for you, and you don't realize how important they are until you don't have one. And then you're in a world of hurt. So, draft Jahdae Barron. That's my hill I'm willing to die on. All right, number 5, Gem. Who you got?
All right, I got the gemmiest gem of all time. Shaun Dolac is on this list because there has never been a gemmier gem. Again, the definition of a gem is not top player in the class, going to get drafted first, going to make the most money in his career. It is a player we turn on the tape and go, damn, that's fun to watch. And Shaun Dolac was exactly that for me. I was pretty early in the process. Shaun Dolac is not a highly rated player. This is a linebacker from the University of Buffalo. But he had been on my list since midsummer. Somebody had said, you really need to look at him. I said, great. Threw him in the hopper with everybody else. And late one night, a couple months ago, I said, I just need a break. I got to watch something fun. Somebody said this guy was fun. I'll watch it. 3 minutes in, I was like, I can't remember who gave me this recommendation, but I owe them a bottle of whiskey. This is amazing. Shaun Dolac is a football player's football player. He is an impact football player. He is efficient and relentless. And every time I watch his tape, my face breaks into a very broad grin. Ludicrous production. 125 tackles with a 5% missed tackle rate. That's absurd for a linebacker. He had 76 stops this season. This season.
Oh,
that's
my God.
Bonkers. He had 13 in one game. There are linebackers that don't have 13 stops on the season.
No, literally, Jeffrey Bassa doesn't have that on the season. Like, I'm not kidding.
Correct.
He has 24 tackles for loss, and Bassa has 3. Like, it's not even close. And yet Bassa's going to get taken like 2 rounds earlier for God knows what reason. Somebody explain it to me. I don't get it.
Add in the TFLs. Add in 16 pressures. That's 5 sacks, 2 hits, and 9 hurries. 5 INTs with an NFL passer rating allowed of 56.5. If your quarterback has a passer rating of 56.5, folks, your team had a terrible day. That's what Shaun Dolac allowed on the season. He's going to make some team that spends a mid to late round pick on him extremely happy. If you'd asked me earlier on, is he going to go undrafted? I might have said yes. Then he went to his pro day and ran 4.55, and everybody went, oh, and saw what we saw on tape. When he really opens it up, he can run. He is not a liability athletically at all. And he reminds me of a guy like Robert Spillane, who was an undrafted free agent once he got a chance to play in a system under a coach who understood linebackers. That coach said, Robert Spillane's one of my favorite players on this defense, and he just signed another deal to go to New England. So Shaun Dolac, I think, is going to have a career where he doesn't start as a marquee player. He doesn't start as a player with his name in lights, but as soon as he gets into the lineup, he's going to make impact every which way but loose, going forward, rushing the passer, stuffing the run, playing against the pass. And I'm talking not only the short pass, but also sideline to sideline. And a team's going to find it very, very hard to take Shaun Dolac off the field once he gets there because dude's a football player. Dude is a defensive gem.
As soon as the Bills redid Matt Milano's contract to basically make him a free agent after 2025, my radar went up. I was like,
grab the local kid. Do
like,
it.
You can't hide from me. I know what you're doing. Like, you're setting yourself up. And you think you can be sneaky and get him in like the 5th or 6th round like you do for all your linebackers. Like, I'm familiar with your game, Brandon Beane. All right. I know that you're going to take Shaun Dolac on day 3. And by like 2027, he's going to be starting for you. And it's going to be him and Terrell Bernard for like the next 5-6 years. Like, you can see it coming from a mile away. As they should, by the way, because he is like the most Bills linebacker in this class, other than Chris Paul Jr., right? A 225-pound guy that can like be super rangy and is really good in zone coverage and has great hands and instincts and toughness and yada. Like, he is so Bills. So Bills. And I'm not just saying that because he plays at Buffalo. Like,
Right.
he is the epitome of a Buffalo Bills linebacker, which is an archetype that I happen to like a lot. So I agree. He's a gem. Number 5 on my list. I alluded to him earlier. We're finally talking about him. Derrick Harmon from Oregon. He is one of the most fun interior linemen in this entire class. And when I first started studying him and I was digging into his profile, I didn't realize that he was 340 pounds a year before this season started. And then he slimmed down when he got to Oregon by 25 pounds to 315. Like, he was straight up like 6'4", 340. Like, he was just a massive human being. But even he admits, like, body composition wise, it really wasn't doing a whole lot for him. So when he got to the Ducks, they're like, hey, we're going to make you a lean, mean killing machine as like a 5 technique / 3 technique. You're not going to be a nose tackle for us because we already have one, who's also going to play a really long time in the league too, by the way, Caldwell. He's awesome. But they're like, hey, we don't need 340 pounders. You're going to be 315. And it was the best thing that ever happened to him, because he turned into a pass rush monster, led all interior defensive linemen in pressures in this class. Now, I did bring up Norman-Lott earlier. Again, he didn't really have as many snaps as Harmon, so he didn't get to the totals of Harmon, pressures-wise, because Harmon had 42 this year, which is crazy. Like, that's 10 more than the next guy in this class, which was Aeneas Peebles. But he wasn't just, an accumulator of stats. He also was 3rd in pass rush win rate behind Norman-Lott at 24%. So he was efficient and, he was consistent, which I think are the 2 best things you can be. Here's a fun stat for you, by the way, because this is something I like to parse out with guys that have a whole, high amount of pressures in total, was how many happen in 2.5 seconds or less and how many happen between 2.5 and 3.5. Because to me, it's helpful to understand, okay, what percentage of these pressures are quick wins and what percentage of these pressures are like second effort wins or transition rushes and like collapsing the pocket. And he had a really, really healthy split, with 19 of those pressures being between 2.5 and 3.5 seconds and everything else being under 2.5 seconds. So he had a lot of quick wins, but he also had a lot of wins on transition rushes, which is an area where if you're a patron and you listen to the Patron-only episode that we did on Mason Graham, like, that was a problem with Mason Graham, was he would only have quick wins and he wouldn't have like power wins or transition wins, coming off play action. It was like either he won immediately or didn't win at all. Having 19 pressures that happen between 2.5 and 3.5 seconds, collapsing the pocket, while Mason Graham total had 23 pressures the entire year, is really, really impressive to have that many second effort pressures as almost Mason Graham's total count. Weirdly, though, he did only get 3 sacks because he's more of a disruptor than a finisher. That was an area where I thought Norman-Lott was better than him because he's a little bit looser. I feel like once Harmon is up to speed moving forward, he's kind of tight-hipped. He doesn't turn as well. So he can kind of get the quarterback off his spot, but he's not going to be able to flatten down his angle and finish the rush. And this sounds like such a weird way to, a weird line in the sand to draw here. I thought he had lateral agility and fluidity when he was doing his pass rush move. It's just once he cleared the guard or cleared the tackle and he was running, like, he just, for whatever reason, became stiff as a board. I don't really have an explanation for it. So again, more of a disruptor than a finisher because of that stiffness, but my God, he can disrupt. Extremely stout in the run game as well, similar to Alfred Collins. You want him to be a 3 technique, you want him to be a 5 technique, and just absolutely dominate the line of scrimmage. Like, that is what he does. He dominates the line of scrimmage. And I have a buddy on the Oregon staff who, spoke very highly of him as far as football character goes, says he's very professional, obviously took the recomposition of his body very, very seriously, and said he's going to play in the league for a long time because of his mental makeup. And also, same thing for Caldwell too, said that he's going to play forever, and that, to me, looking at the Oregon defense and what they had around them, like that D line between Harmon and Caldwell and Birch, like that was the defense. Like everything worked because of those guys. And I think they were so good up front that honestly, they're going to get the guys that lined up behind them drafted probably higher than they should. But that's how dominant that defensive line was.
Yeah, if you didn't talk about him, I was gonna, because I saw him yesterday in Eugene at the Ducks Pro Day. And I will tell you what, that is a grown-ass man.
Yep.
And not just because he looks that way on the hoof. Like, we see a lot of football players up close doing testing, playing games, whatever. Some of them are just built different. Harmon is built different. But not only that, it's the hushed tones that other players within the program use when they're talking about him. There was another defensive player who's, probably going to be a UDFA. And he was talking to his agents and some press yesterday, and they were kind of like, "Oh, who's that?" And he's like, "Oh, that's Harmon, man. Like, that guy's a mutant. Like, he said, first sprint of the year." Now, remember, this guy is 55 pounds lighter than Harmon. He's like, first sprint of the year, he flat out kicked my ass by like 3 yards. I was like, what the hell? Like, what happened to you, buddy? And everybody just kind of looks at him and talks about him in very reverential tones of, oh, that's the one. And like you said, it's not that he's the only guy on the team. There's 2 other guys on that line that are going to get drafted pretty highly and deserve it. Birch and Caldwell, both really good players. Everybody talks about Harmon differently. Harmon is the one. He's like Neo. Everybody's just kind of like, oh, that's the dude right there. You don't mess with that dude. He is a bad man. And everybody knew it, and he took that on, as well as the recomposition of his body, that, yeah, I'm going to lead this defense. Even if I'm the straw that's stirring the drink and not necessarily finishing, I'm going to mess people up. I am going to throw people out of the way. He is extremely strong. First thing that pops on tape is just how powerful he is as a human being. And that's going to make a lot of opportunities, like you said, for the defensive players around him to be better. And I think that's going to get him drafted pretty highly because tremendous physical skills, great testing, like you talked about, football character, willingness to change his game to get better. Those are all things that NFL teams just kind of are very thirsty for. And Harmon is and has all of them.
All right. It's time for honorable mentions, which are, at this point, the list of names that we really, really, really tried hard to put into our top 5 and just couldn't find a spot, but we wanted to talk about them anyway. And even then, it was hard just to reduce the honorable mentions this year to 5 because this class is so fun. But we managed to do it. I'll let you do your 5 first, and I'll do my 5.
All right, I got to go with Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. He's incredibly talented and really versatile, wins in a lot of ways, going to get drafted up high. He's not in any kind of sleeper, but he is a very, very good player and certainly fits the GEMS criteria of really fun to watch. Another one is a name you mentioned, Andrew Makuba, also known as Drew, the safety from Texas. A little bit smaller, but will hit, has great range, plays deep, plays up against the line. He's got some lapses that he's got to clean up. He's probably going to get drafted somewhere between 90 and 110 or so. That's the range he's going to go, but he's got great physical skills. He's got good eyes, and I think he's not done improving as a football player yet, so that makes him a favorite of mine. Braden Swinson, the edge from LSU. Again, I'm all over the board.
I was
on
so
this
pissed
class.
You took him from me. Oh man, I saw your honorable mentions. I was like, you motherfucker!
You
like I wanted
jerk.
Swinson so bad.
You know why I took Swinson? It's because we went to OLM this summer, and I listened to all the tackles and guards and the centers talk about the types of pass rushers and the combinations of things that really good pass rushing teams do to them that make it difficult. And I think everybody wants 2 fireballers off the edge, right? Everybody wants Micah Parsons. Everybody wants fast guys with bend that are just lightning. Everybody loves that flash. And if you talk to tackles and guards, what really screws them up is one of those and a guy that is just an ass kicker that can collapse the pocket at the shorter depth. And the combination of those two creates a pincer so that the quarterback can't drift backwards. He can't step up, and that creates sacks. And it gave me more reverence for those power guys. And Braden Swinson can lock out and drive his guy to the quarterback as well as anybody in this edge class. And he doesn't necessarily have a lot of bend. He's got a nice little shoulder dip move, but he doesn't have a lot of classic bend. And I think in years past, I would have not ranked him as highly. And instead, I looked at him for what he is and said, that's half of what teams need, and he's a really good one. So that's why I took Swinson. Jonas Sanker, the defensive safety from Virginia, is a bigger version than Makuba and is also a hitter. Love the aggressiveness he plays with. I saw him early in the fall and sort of put him on my list and said, yeah, I got to come back. Not as good in the deep third as Makuba is, but still pretty darn capable there and is going to get drafted probably right after him. And then the last one might be my favorite, Elijah Williams, the D tackle from Morgan State, who had a tremendous week down at the HBCU Bowl. He is a 3-tech in terms of disrupting pass rusher. I've got a buddy on the Morgan State staff. I said, what do you think his best position? He's a 3-tech without hesitation. They played him at some 5. He can play all over, but he was unstoppable this year for Morgan State. He messed people up. He was the guy that when Morgan State came to town, you had to game plan against if you didn't want your offense wrecked. So Elijah Williams, name to keep an eye on.
Before I get to mine, that Swinson bull rush against USC, I know that's the one you watched where you're like, done. He's good.
Well, there's a bunch, though. That's the thing, is he could do it from both sides. He does it different ways. He doesn't always lock out, but a lot of times he'll get guys moving because they're afraid of him, because he is fast and he's got a bunch of different moves. He's got great hand usage, and he'll get guys guessing. It reminds me of a great baseball pitcher, right? With 2 or 3 really good pitches, and guys are just like, I don't know whether to swing or hold up. And that's what tackles look like when they're playing Swinson. And right when their eyes sort of get big, he just runs them the hell over, like straight up, like, you don't know what's coming? Fine, I will just push you straight back. And they stagger. You know, they talk about putting a guy on skates. Like, I saw him make more offensive tackles just stagger backwards. Like, I got nothing. You know, they're yelling at the quarterback like, look out below.
Get out the way.
I'm going to be in your lap. And Swinson's super fun that way.
My honorable mentions, I'm also going to start with a defensive end that wins with power a lot because you guys know that's my type. JT Tuimoloau, the edge from Ohio State. I really thought about putting him in my 5, but when you're also trying to consider Swinson and Josaiah Stewart, and I already had 2 defensive tackles, it's like, I can't just do defensive linemen. So I put him as an honorable mention. He does, or I should rather say he is the poster child for trust the tape over the analytics, because the analytics profile is not super kind to him. Doesn't have a great pass rush win rate, but then you throw on the tape and it just looks like it's going to work, right? Like, I just trust my gut on this one. It just looks like it's going to work. You know, I don't want to say this all the time, but just damn the statistics. I believe in him. I think he's going to be okay. Chris Paul Jr. should go without saying. One of my favorite linebackers, one of my favorite players in this class. I think he's like a natural fit for Tampa in round 2 to be Levante David's heir apparent. And boy, I think he would love learning from Levante.
Yep.
Billy Bowman Jr., the safety nickel hybrid out of Oklahoma, rangy, explosive, aggressive, you know, reminds me a lot of Jalen Petrie, which if you watch tape on him for like 5 minutes will make a lot of sense. Trust me. I really struggle with which spot I want him to play more between free safety and nickel, because he does have range and ball skills and gets a lot of picks, but also he's just like so willing to hit in the run game that I kind of don't want to waste that by just putting him in the post. So I'll just say draft him and then let the coaches figure it out. But he could do either one. JJ Pegues, I mean, as far as fun factor goes, I don't know if there's very many players that are more fun than JJ Pegues in this class, because he's both a dominant presence on the line of scrimmage as a D tackle and also a really effective receiving option and rushing option on the goal line as a fullback / tight end hybrid. Really athletic. You know, he scored, I think it was 7 touchdowns for Ole Miss this year, but they had him doing receiving drills after he was done doing all like the D-line drills and everything like that at the combine. They had him do a whole like tight end workout as well. And he crushed it, by the way, at 310 pounds. So if you're looking for like the new Patrick Ricard, I'm pretty sure it's JJ Pegues, except he's a better defensive lineman than Patrick Ricard was. So he can literally do both. He's just like a jumbo Travis Hunter, if you want a two-way player. And then finally, Colin Oliver, the off-ball linebacker / edge rush extraordinaire from Oklahoma State. I want to have a longer conversation about him relative to Jihaad Campbell at some point down the line, because I think Jihaad Campbell's a better off-ball linebacker than Colin Oliver is, but I think Colin Oliver is a better pass rusher as that kind of Sam, movable chess piece kind of guy than Jihaad Campbell is. So if you want somebody who's really going to impact the game as a pass rusher, I think you wait a couple rounds, you take Colin Oliver. If you want somebody who is going to be like a day one starting off-ball linebacker who could become an effective pass rusher, you take Jihaad Campbell early. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But Colin Oliver, really, really, really fun player.
I'm glad you brought up the comparison to Jihaad Campbell, because Colin Oliver is the, break glass in case of emergency. You missed out on Campbell and you want a similar type player that might, again, have more strengths as a pass rusher. Definitely a player to check out, and a very weird profile. I love weird scouting profiles, and he is a weird scouting profile in a good way, and it really makes you work and kind of dig in and say, who is this guy and how could I use him? And Colin Oliver, poster child for that in this draft.
All right, well, that'll wrap it up for not just today, but for the 2025 10 Gem series. Even though it's only 2 episodes long, it's one of our favorite things we do every single year. You guys love it, hopefully as much as we love making it. Judging by the views in the comments, it seems to be going well this year so far. So hopefully this one does just as well as the offensive episode. Also want to remind you guys, again, last week we posted our interview with Kyle McCord, which I think you guys are going to love a lot. Like, he could challenge to be a top 4 quarterback taken in this draft, potentially even as early as the second round. And if you watch that interview, I think you'll see why. Really, really impressive kid. Again, we got the Cobee Bryant interview coming soon. We have a whole bunch of patron-exclusive content that is both already on the Patreon as well as coming soon on the Patreon. So if you're not a patron, go check that out at the link in the description below as well. I want to thank all of our executive producers at the highest tiers of our Patreon: Fitzy, Connor, Eichen, Liam, and Mike. Once again, could not do this without your guys' support. Before we get out of here, EJ, anything else?
No, I am grateful for all of it, for all the folks that watch and comment, like, subscribe, support us on Patreon. It is a very important part of what we do. We love doing it, but make no mistake, we could not do it without you. So thank you very much for all of that.
All right. I don't know what our next episode's going to be. We're figuring that out as we go, but we do plan to have some more interviews with, some of your favorite, let's just call them draft people. We want to get DJ back on for his yearly visit, Mina, all them. So we'll have a better content schedule probably within the next week or so, and we'll let the patrons know who's coming and when. But either way, we will have something else for you next week, whatever it is. And until then, see you later.